Welcome to Let's Talk, a show about us, our people, our community, our culture, our experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lakshmi Singh and I am your host. Well, guys, recently in the Indo-Caribbean community, there's been a lot of internal gossiping about this great humanitarian who has donated a large sum of monies to organizations and mundirs right here in the United States of America, as well as Guyana and Jamaica. He now has been recently accused as being the alleged mastermind behind the brutal killing of young carpenter Faiyaz Narinedatt. Faiyaz Narinedatt is from Berbice, Guyana. He is a young father himself and was an only child. Today on Let's Talk, we've gathered a group of panelists to shed light on, is Marcus Brian Bisram a murderer or a motivator? Guys, our panelists are, first, we have Mr. Joseph Concannon. He is a former New York Police Department captain, and he's recently running for city councilman in District 23. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me here today.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Chuck Mohan. Chuck Mohan is a community activist as well as a teacher. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thirdly, we have Faiyaz Aziz, who is a local nightlife promoter as well as a real estate agent. Welcome, Faiyaz.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you guys on. Thank you for taking your evening out to be with us today. Now, we're talking about this great humanitarian, Mr. Marcus Brian Bisram, who has done so much for the Indo-Caribbean community right here in U.S. as well as internationally in Guyana and Jamaica as well. There's no doubt to say that Marcus has been doing great work in our community, but now he's being accused of being the mastermind behind this murder. Should his great work outweigh these accusations against him? Joseph.
Well, Lady Justice is blind, and that goes to your stature in society as well as whether or not there's enough reasonable belief of whether or not you've committed a crime. So when the police become aware that someone has filed a complaint, they will investigate it no matter who you are. And that doesn't necessarily mean if you've done 1,000 good works, they're going to ignore it. They're not. They're going to follow the path of their investigations, and they will pursue whatever leads that are out there. And that's irregardless of your stature in life, from the smallest person to the largest person. You know, we're all subject to the same rules.
Thank you, Joseph. Chuck.
Well, you know, when we use this term humanitarian, that's a topic that we could discuss for days, because many times humanitarian, people with money would make charitable contributions to mask other things they might be doing that is not so good, to make the public feel, to have a public appearance of being holier than thou. The fact that this young man was killed, and based on all the evidence at this point, it's not everything, but at this point, if it is true that this gentleman, who's on the run, by the way, and is not making an attempt to come forward, because if I was accused of a crime and I'm not guilty, I would come forward to clear my name. The mere fact of him not coming forward leaves a lot of questions to many people of his guilt. And so we need to take all those things into consideration. No one is saying he's guilty, but the actions of him and his family would leave people to say there's some form of guilt here.
Thank you, Chuck. Faiyaz.
I mean, just like Chuck said, no one's saying he's guilty. No one's saying he's not guilty. But to answer your question, his money shouldn't base if he's rich or not rich for him to go to trial, for him to go to jail. Everyone deserves a fair trial. Everyone deserves the same rights, no matter how much money you have or what your position is in this world.
You know, there's no doubt that this particular case has brought up a lot of red lights for our Indo-Caribbean community right here. possibly because, of course, he's done so much for this Indo-Caribbean community right here. How do you feel that the Indo-Caribbean community here in USA should approach this particular case? Joe?
Well, they should really, be looking at this the way they would look at anything else, quite frankly. And if this gentleman has done, many good works in the community, then, they shouldn't be swayed by any of this right now. They need to sit out, and really pay attention to the criminal justice process, respect that process, and if asked, join in that process, and let it play out. Now, obviously, if this person becomes the subject of an arrest, that's going to amp things up a bit, right? It's going to elevate everyone's attention because of his positive notoriety and the things that he's done in the community, right? So that will pull people back a little bit, and they will be aghast at if he should get arrested. They'll be aghast about that. They'll say, how could this happen to this man who's done all these wonderful things? If extradition papers actually hit and they drop here in the U.S. and the authorities are asked to pick him up and deliver him so that he can go through the judicial process down in his home, then that's going to amp it up even more. And people are going to watch a trial. And, some of these trials with high-profile people can take on a lot of notoriety. And some people will form their opinions very quickly. Others will do what I would call probably the more mature thing and sit, wait, listen, and read the facts. And then when the facts come out, they'll form their own opinions, and so will the courts and juries. And at that point in time, then people will probably weigh in even more heavily. So this is a gradual step process, which is natural. It happens here in the United States all the time, especially here in New York City, quite a bit.
Okay, Jack.
Some of the organizations that received money from him, I think they're wondering now where will other donations come from, since he was quite generous to them. And I think that would be swaying them somehow to hold back and not say anything on this matter, which I think is not correct for the community. But as you know, we have a strange community that somehow, if you supposedly have money, you're put on a pedestal, especially when you give out some crumbs to the people in the community. Some rich people always like to go around Thanksgiving giving out a turkey, like that does something good for the community, which it really doesn't. And so they're wondering now where this money is going to come from, because I haven't heard anything from some of the mandirs that he have given money to and some other organizations. And as a mandir, as a church in the community, they should be the first to come out, okay? As you know, sometimes when elected officials take money from certain people, they give it back sometimes because it can ruin their reputation. Because the question also will become, as some people are asking, how did he inherit this money? And that's another question that has to be answered. Was it legitimately or illegitimately? So it's a lot of questions here. And for you to be just giving out money back and forth, he's not a Warren Buffett, that's for sure, or a Bill Gates. So a lot of questions remain. But as a community, we should not take that burden to think that, well, how does it look on our community? No, how does it look on him? Not the community. Right. We can't take on every person in the community who is found guilty of a crime. It's not necessarily our responsibility. Yes, we will have our opinions on it, but we shouldn't take it on with how is the community going to look. They have to pay the price of what they do.
Thank you so much, Jack. Fire.
Yes, he had a lot of money. Yes, he had millions of Guyana dollars. He gave it to a lot of people. He gave it to a lot of temples, mandirs, donations. People can say what they want to say. Maybe he gave it out of the kindness of his heart. Maybe he gave it to buy people's loyalty. Maybe he gave it to buy people's friendship. No one's going to know the reason he gave it or why he did it. Maybe he just genuinely wanted to give the money.
Well, maybe he did it to get their silence.
We don't know that. Now,
We don't, I agree.
no. Now, being that he gave the money, in our West Indian community, if anyone's giving you money and they do a crime, are you really coming forward? The right thing to do is to come forward, yes. But if you're getting millions of dollars from someone and you know that person committed that crime for a fact, or he had something to do with it, are you really going to give that person up? The right thing to do is, yes, but this community here, everyone knows everyone. Someone's giving you free money, you're going to take it. You're not going to try to rat that person out. In any everyday life, that's what the situation is. Not the right thing to do, but that's what it is.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the facts with this murder case. So the Major Crimes Unit has statements from 2 men who admitted to killing Narinedatt and driving a vehicle over his body to stage a hit and run. Police are reportedly working on the speculation that Bisram ordered Narinedatt's killing. Why do you think Bisram or his foundation isn't releasing a statement in regards to this alleged accusation?
Well, it's a natural thing for any organization to do.
Right.
And at this point, since he has not been arrested, he doesn't have legal help at this point. So he's not being advised, or they're not being advised as to what to do. And sometimes because there's no one in the organization, sometimes the head of the organization is the organization, and any other person on the lower level really has no say, so they don't have the authority to give a statement to the public.
It may well be a cultural thing as well. He may feel, quite frankly, that maybe he is above, some of this common chatter that's going on about a murder back in Guyana. He may feel, that just may be the way he is, and there is no, me. I'm I guess a millionaire or a billionaire. And I'm giving out money. I've got important things to do on my schedule every day. Well, this could be, what's, the thoughts in his mind. So that could be another perspective. It could be almost a cultural, maybe even a personality kind of, trait going on inside of him. This is an individual who's done a lot of good things in many different communities and is respected by a lot of people. So if he's going to be taken down for murder, there is going to have to be substantial evidence on this. And because he's here in New York, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. If he gets indicted back in his home country and they file the extradition papers, NYPD probably will act on this very quickly.
Just like Chuck said earlier, being that his family or his organization didn't give a statement, it's making him look guilty. His family or someone should come forward on his behalf and give a statement to the situation that took place. Being that everyone's being quiet, it makes him look bad. So someone should honestly step up and say something on his behalf.
I would disagree with you. No. From my perspective in law enforcement, I would disagree with you. Not that the people in law enforcement wouldn't like that. They would love that. Okay. All right, they'd love him to get out and start talking. Because every time you start talking, what do? You start locking yourself into different scenarios, different answers, depending upon how questions are put to you. So the smartest thing that anyone will tell you in the criminal justice field is, say nothing. Say nothing at all.
And let the evidence come to light.
Well, let things happen, and if the criminal justice process is starting to look heavy at you, maybe now you hire lawyers. The first person he may hire is a public relations person. That may be the first person. And then after that, when they feel the heat, if it's really coming down on him, then he may get a lawyer. And then after that, he may get a few international people, contesting the extradition papers and a whole bunch of things. So, getting out there, making a statement, no.
Well, you have more experience than I do, John.
Yeah, well, no, but I think it's a common way a lot of people would think about it, right? Get out there and proclaim your innocence immediately. No, not necessarily. So even the purely innocent, by the way, no.
Okay. The other thing is, His mother was arrested
Well,
in Guyana.
let's talk about that situation particularly, right? So here's the situation with this case. The night of Halloween, Marcus throws this grand party, okay? Police officers are invited there. He had recently given $2.5 million to a local police department. So police officers were there, his security guards were there, people from the local community were there, drinking, having a party, having a great time. It's alleged that he approached Faiyaz Narinedatt with sexual advances. Narinedatt refused the sexual advances, and it's alleged that Bisram said to his people, whether it be the security guards or whoever was at this party, kill him, get rid of him. These are the things that were being said. So this happens. This Narinedatt was brutally beaten. He was killed. He was thrown into a trunk of a car. He was taken to another village. He was taken out of his car. They tried to run him over, but that car was too low. So they called someone else who had a higher car. That person came, ran him over. The family, November 1st, the body appears on the road and is said, your son was hit and run. But now witnesses that were at this party goes to the mother and says, your son was not hit and run. Your son was beaten to death. And this is what happened. So now the parents here are trying to get law enforcement to come and investigate the case. Local police officers say, nope, your son was hit and run, end of story. So for 2 weeks, they fought as hard as they could until Major Crimes Unit got involved, came to Berbice, because they're coming from Georgetown, from the city to the country, to get involved in this. They start investigating. They pick up 5 people let me correct myself, it was either 4 or 5 people that were accused of being part of this beating up Faiyaz Narinedatt. They get picked up. Now the Sunday, they get picked up Saturday. The Sunday, okay, Bisram's mother goes to the police department and bribes the police $4 million. 4 million Guyana dollars, okay, which is about 20,000 American dollars, okay, bribes the police department. How do we explain a mother bribing the police department $4 million?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You know, there's the whole ethics and policing piece of this. For a while, I did work in the Internal Affairs Division of the New York City Police Department. And I can tell you that there are just levels upon levels upon levels of review within NYPD that looks at all of these different types of issues and circumstances that can evolve. How the mother comes down directly donating to a public agency is a whole nother issue as well. All of these things are going to be a matter of great interest to everyone in law enforcement, everyone in the criminal justice process, and the community as well. Probably one of the very first things that will happen during this entire investigation will be establishing the list of people who were in the room, right? You know, so this is a typical whodunit, kind of murder mystery. Mm-hmm. And they'll want to know the invite list. The people that showed, the people that didn't show. They'll want to know all of them. They'll want to talk to every single one of them. Those people that were arrested, including the mother and her bad acts, they'll probably be the last people interviewed. The first people will be everyone else. Did you see so-and-so? Was she there? When did she leave? Oh, you saw him leave. Did he leave in a car? Was it a low-profile car or a high-profile car? All of these questions will be a matter of police interest and investigation in order to establish, whether or not they have enough to go forward to the local district attorney down there and say, hey, listen, we are going to file an affidavit, all right, for murder, probably the most serious charge that can be leveled on any individual of any crime, right? And the DA is going to have to take a look at the instrument and see whether or not it actually has enough meat to it for them to proceed and go forward. If it does, they may down there impanel a grand jury. And what they may do at that grand jury is they may present evidence that has been collected from the night of that very party and perhaps from electronic instruments before the night of that party, from all people that were involved. They'll put that all together, and then they'll begin their investigation and they'll go forward. If they're successful, they'll get an indictment. If they get an indictment, then they'll wind up getting the extradition papers. And then he'll have to go.
Thank you, Joe. Joe.
I am not sure when he donated money to the police department. Was he donating because the police department has, like over here, a police athletic league that they're doing things for the kids, which I don't think. So why is he giving money, donating to the police department? Is that hush money? And if you go a little further, the fact that he, when the parents went to the police department and they said it was a hit and run, it tells me something is not correct there, and that should be investigated. Also, if my mother is in jail and I'm on the run, I would seem to want to protect my mother. You know, he's not making any attempt to do anything. He's actually in hiding. He's actually in hiding.
I hear.
All right. So his mother went to give a donation or bribe the precinct with more money to let the 4 guys that was arrested out. In any community, a parent or a mother would do anything for their child. If you're Guyanese, Trinidadian, Jamaican, African American, Caucasian, wherever you're from, a mother would do anything for her child, to protect her child, to make sure her child is safe. Not saying what she's doing is right, not saying that he committed murder, not saying he's guilty. That's my opinion on being a mother. Now, like you said, any child wouldn't want to see their mother in harm. Why he's not coming forward, we don't know. We won't know until he comes forward. But the bribery or the donation on his mother's timing, if that's what it was completely wrong.
Okay. Well, it's said that money talks. What precedents do you think this case will have on exposing corruption and bribery within the Guyanese government? I'm going to start that with you, Chuck, because I think this is probably one of the very first times, I would say, that we're seeing that bribe money is not wanted or not accepted back home in Guyana. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge that bribery and corruption happens a lot in Guyana, and this is probably one of the first times that we're not seeing that this money is wanted or accepted.
It's not that it's not wanted or accepted. It's because other authorities found out and were about to come to investigate. So if you've already collected money, as he had made a donation previously, and here comes the mother now with this, it's a bribe.
Right.
And listen, this is no exception. It's not that bribery is not wanted. To get anything done in Guyana,
There's a bribe.
there's a bribe. The police department is no different. Okay? They're the ones that are protecting criminals in many cases in Guyana. Let's be fair about it. Okay? And unless they can break that trend, we will still see the killings, the robbings, and everything else that's going on in Guyana now. This case is not an exception. It's part of the rule.
Okay, I hear.
90% of everything done in Guyana, government-wise, is bribery. You could bribe anyone to get anything that you need in bribery. A murder's committed, it's usually covered up. Surprisingly, this one wasn't. So to answer your question, money does talk, especially in Guyana.
Okay, Joseph.
Yeah, you know, the point that the gentlemen are raising about Guyana and corruption, I just want to, let everybody know, there's thousands of driver's licenses right here in New York City that are made fraudulently every year. Mm-hmm. All right, and police department and federal and state agencies are, going after that as much as they can. there is more, there are bad acts that we don't hear about, and bad actors all over the United States of America. We saw it in the last election, with people voting that weren't even citizens of the country, and all sorts of terrible things going on. Guyana can do what every other government can do, and put the appropriate checks and balances and audit processes in place to keep a check on what's going on. You know, if an individual were to run into a local police station here we're in Queens today, right, and say, hey, I've got $10,000 for you guys, Merry Christmas, all right, alarm bells would go off, all right, they'd say, what?
Yeah, but that's not what's taking place in Guyana. In Guyana, someone could come with $10,000 and be like, hey, we got $10,000 for you. The guy that's taking the $10,000 will be...
There's only one difference, however.
Well, that would be my point, right? Yeah. So you have to train, all right, and embed professional development within the ranks and within the supervisory ranks, and then as things will go wrong, as we know they always do it, given a certain amount of time, then the remedies for that are the punishments. And they start at the lower levels for the lower rung people, and then the supervisory, mid-supervisory, and management people, if they get involved in any of this, then the punishment it grows exponentially, all right? And that kind of a thing has to be well publicized and has to be put out there so that if the line person, whether he's a policeman, whether he's a school teacher, whether he's a postal official, any of these people in government taking bribes at any particular level, they know, boy, did you see what happened to Joe? All right, he got 6 years in jail for doing what? For taking a ham sandwich, you know, for doing whatever the bad act might have been.
Joe, I understand what you're saying completely, but in that country, it's easier said than done to get those steps in order. Okay. But I definitely get where you're coming from.
I'm not poo-pooing it. I understand they've got a ways to go. All right, but that's one of the ways you do it. And you know, foreign governments have a play with this as well. The United States and their interactions with Guyana. You know, it's part of the talks what go on between governments. You know, human rights issues, corruption issues, all of these different things are on the table when our government here in the United States goes visiting. All right, and they make their diplomatic relations between the State Department and they go down there. You know, some of these things come up for discussion sometimes. And a high-profile case such as this one, it might come up for discussion. How are things going? All right, what's the process look like? Can you keep me informed about what's going on? That simple pressure alone could, in fact, you know, signal some things to the government in Guyana that, hey, look out, did you see the guy from the State Department in the U.S.? He wants to be kept abreast of what's going on. Oh, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we got to do what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, Joe, I hope you can make that call for us.
In terms of walking into a precinct and giving 10,000, when we talk about corruption all over the world of police departments, we have it in the NYPD. We just found the cases of people taking from the Jewish organizations to give gun permits, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, right.
People, it's more sophisticated in the United States. They do things differently. So I don't walk in and give 10,000 cash to the policeman, but I may make a donation, a substantial donation, to the PAL, and I get preferential treatment. Or I may throw a party for the precinct, and I get preferential treatment. So things are done differently. It's just like sometimes when we look politically at lobbyists, many say it's a legal bribe to get work done. So there are different ways to do things. In Guyana, we just come out and do it. That's just our culture. Or in the Caribbean, for example. So I just wanted to make those two clarifications.
All right, guys, let's talk about if Bisram goes to trial. At this point, if he goes to trial in Guyana, I'm pretty sure the people would think that he would definitely have an unbiased trial. What factors would go into that to perhaps sway the jury?
You think he'd have an unbiased trial?
Yes.
Really, huh? Well, that's good. That's actually good. That means the criminal justice process is working. All right. There could be a lot coming down the road that might undermine that. The least of which is, a legal adversary that could wind up profiling the jurors and perhaps helping them make a decision that might be something other than what they were thinking of. We've seen jury tampering at all different levels and stages in the criminal justice system. That's happened. We've seen different people bought off. There's a lot of influence that can go directly to family or to extended family. There can be just unlimited amounts of double bad acts to cover that up.
If he goes to trial, the fact that he hasn't come forward yet could sway a jury or sway the public in Guyana. If he made an appearance and says, look, I'm wanted, here I am, it can show some kind of him not being guilty in a way. But the facts are still there. But the fact that you're coming forward, we're focusing on this guy. The most important people in this is the victim and his family and the young child that has been left behind. And I think we need maybe to stop focusing on him, because remember, he's this rich guy. He has money. What about the poor family, this gentleman who died? What about those people? Did anyone say, or anyone started in Guyana, and I don't know, so I'm asking the question, to take up some contributions for the family? Some contributions to help that kid in college when he gets older?
Yeah, there actually has been.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. I think we need, sometimes we focus and give too much publicity to the perpetrator of crimes. And the victims, we don't care. That is what is wrong with the press. There's a saying in the press, if it bleeds, it reads.
Leads.
All right? Or leads, too.
Leads,
right? So this is what goes on. It still goes on in Guyana. It goes on here. But I think we need to change the focus on the family rather than him, not even his mother, because she's already an accessory, basically, by trying to bribe the police authorities.
If the case does go to trial, is he going to have a fair trial? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it, based on the government, based on the economy in Guyana. Highly doubt it. Now, you're talking about people that was at the party that don't want to come forward and say what happened, or people don't want to get interviewed if that's the case because they're scared. So now what makes you think a jury is not going to be scared for their life, or what makes you think if he has all this money that the jury won't take a payoff if that's the case? Or maybe we do go to trial and there's evidence proving that the guy didn't do anything at all.
But the only thing I'd say to you, and the only hope I really hold out to this, and it's true in Guyana, it's true here in New York, is videotape. And if it depends upon whether or not the first people who responded to this crime, whether or not they secured the evidence. If they secured the evidence, if they secured videotape, if they can bring some of this back to life, then he's going to have a rough road to hoe. If in fact he's implicated in the crime at all. All right. I've seen cases where people have been suggestive and not really done anything else other than boy, I wish he was dead. And someone who is powerful like that. And who has people who he may have paid off during his time, or they may feel indentured to him, all right, to take and act upon that.
Let's talk about that, Joseph. All of the people who are coming forward and saying what happened, they're saying that Bisram told me to kill him, or Bisram told me to get rid of him. Bisram didn't touch Faiyaz Narinedatt, right? So can he really be charged for this? I mean,
Well, it's good.
he said do this,
yeah.
but I mean, if I tell you to jump off of a bridge, are you going to jump off of a bridge?
More than likely not.
Right.
All right, but you raise a good point. Words do matter. They matter a lot. How people intone themselves, how they give direction to others, what kind of control they have over people. You know, am I an employee? Am I a sister, brother, mother? You know, relative, something of that nature. Am I in a rank-ordered organization? You know, and when I say something, you know, 17 previous acts, I've had to do exactly what it was. Otherwise, I was brought in for warnings and, you know, might have been fired and things like that. So, you know, all of these different things come into account, as well as the culture of the country. All right? And, you know, if a man with means or a woman with means and the right culture and the right mix, you know, and all of a sudden there's a suggestion out there, you know, boy, I really hate her, you know, really, you know, and then something, you know, ridiculous happens, you know, all of that will be brought up, and, you know, whether it's part of a conspiracy theory or whether it's, you know, part of a murder investigation is not for me to, you know, kind of say it'll happen or not. It's up to the local investigators, the facts of the matter, and the local district attorney to see if the level of information has risen high enough for them to proceed.
Right. But here, how do you feel about that? You know, what if I said to you, you know, I don't like Chuck. Get rid of Chuck. You know.
Words are words. Words have power. 100% we know that. If I tell Chuck, go hit Joe in the face, and Joe turns around and press charges on me, I never touched Joe. So you're talking about a party that took place, and I honestly don't see this guy, Marcus, going and telling people in public, get rid of him. You're talking about a guy that had everything he wanted. He had the fame, he had the popularity, he had the money.
Well, we're assuming that, right?
Okay.
Maybe he didn't have everything he really wanted. He had all those material things that you and I think, you know, hey, wow, what more could this guy want?
Okay, well, I understand that.
He's lost his partner.
Okay, he lost his partner, yes. Let's say he was looking for another partner. Out of all the places to look for another partner, you know, you were a U.S.-based citizen. Your choices are better on this side than it is over there. Not saying that maybe he wanted whatever it was he was looking for at the point in time. But I just don't see a guy giving all of that up by just committing a crime like that publicly, telling people to go ahead, go forward, okay, get rid of him. Don't get me wrong. The Faiyaz, he got murdered. 100%, someone or a group of people murdered him, beat him down, whatever it is. Justice should be served for him based on the people that committed his murder. Right. In my opinion, I believe Marcus was the one that said, hey, I'm going to help you guys beat him. I don't think he put a finger on him.
State of mind. Let me just add this. You know, money is power. And with his status in that community there, how dare you reject my advances?
There you go.
Right?
You got it, Chuck.
And then sometimes the fact that maybe people there did not know his sexual preference. Or maybe was surprised that he would, you understand?
Right.
And it is not, I think it can happen where he can give the order, and because some of those people are beholding to him, get rid of him. And they did it. Because people are coming out and saying, we heard this. And that's not one person. Several people. The people who committed the crime, two of them, I think, already said that he did. Now, he didn't pull the trigger. He gave the orders. He's just as guilty. He is just as guilty as those, in my opinion, that those people who did the killing. Can he get a fair trial? Well, what is fair? The question is, to me, if he is found guilty, some people will say, well, he didn't get a fair trial. It was publicized. But that's irrelevant. If the evidence shows that he committed the crime, it's a fair trial.
But what evidence do you have right now?
No, they're gathering the evidence. He didn't go to trial yet.
Okay.
I'm saying if he did, that means they'll have the evidence, hopefully, and what I'm hoping is that justice will prevail and that there will be no more briberies going on or attempted briberies from others in his organization who may have access to the funds in the organization to try and pay people off. It has happened before in Guyana. It can happen again. I am not saying the gentleman is guilty. I am saying that everything thus far is in that direction. But I also believe that he has a right to have that day in court, like everyone else. You're accused. Let's put everything forward. A bottle of rum can change a person's vote, as you know, in Guyana. I'm older than most of you Guyanese in here, so money can change a person's evidence also.
Right.
You see.
Why do you think he's not, appearing in court or going back to Guyana for questioning? I mean, first he was called in for questioning. He was requested by the government, by the police, to come in for questioning. He didn't come in for questioning. Then he was requested to show up in court. He didn't show up in court. Now, because he didn't show up in court, he has been deemed a wanted murderer. Why do you think that he hasn't shown up?
First of all, the government should not make a request. Yeah. In a situation, he should be arrested, not a request. Oh, please come in and talk. No. You arrest him, you take him, and if you find there's nothing, then they expect him to run?
There are processes here, and it depends on, I don't know what level of their investigation has gone forward so far. If they've made a request for him to come in, then maybe he does have lawyers, and maybe those attorneys are saying, hey, Mr. Smith is not going to be available for interview. And maybe then the police down there have to figure out what the next steps are. And maybe they don't have enough information yet to file an instrument with the local court so that they actually can make an arrest. I find it very odd that they would just be requesting. They could request anybody to come in. I mean, what's a request? All right, there's got to be official reports filed, all right, with the police. Their investigations get opened, and there are subjects and others that are part of that investigation. And from there, the police will go out and conduct their business. If they need him back in Guyana, then they're going to find a legal instrument to do it. And then extradition papers will drop, and he'll be brought back as maybe a material witness to a crime, maybe for murder, maybe for a whole lot of things. I don't know. And that's what we don't know. So this whole notion of someone being requested, I think it sounds way too casual. And, sort of like, oh, gee, Chuck was requested to come into Midtown South. Oh, gee, why? The police want to talk to him. Gee, what's that all about? I don't know. There's some guy laying dead on the side of the highway the other day, Hey, Chuck, where were you anyway, That kind of thing doesn't happen. All right, these are, here in the United States, these are formal investigative processes, and it's not a request.
But here, why do you think Bisram is not going back home to clear his name?
There could be many reasons he's not going back home. One, he did do it. Two, he don't have time for it. Three, he's scared for his life. From the time we all know how the Caribbean works, anything is possible once that plane lands. We've dealt with many cases that, without not this same situation, other cases where as soon as people land, things want to got to get done, it could get done. So he's probably scared for his life.
If he's on a plane and it lands down in Guyana, then they'll meet him at the gate.
That's right.
He won't get off the plane. They'll come on the plane.
So on the night of the murder, Bisram is said to have made unwanted sexual advances towards Narinedatt. How do you think this is going to affect our LGBT community here?
I don't think it should affect the community. In every race, in every ethnicity, every religion, they're good and bad people. They're criminals. They're people who accept the laws of society and work within it, and some who works outside of it. It should not have an effect on them. They should go along in their business. The only way they may be feeling a little upset, if I heard correctly, is that he made some donations to their organization. If it is true, then I can see the hesitation in coming out. But I've also heard that he was a person that did not come out and say he was gay. So there are still questions here also. Again, just like the LGBT community should not worry about this, the community in general should not worry. It should be just like one of those cases. We talk about it amongst ourselves in the living room and we move on. There's no guilty feelings amongst the community about it. It's not right, but they should not take his burden and put it on their shoulders and move around daily in their daily chores.
Faiyaz, what do you think about this Bisram case in the LGBT community, how it's affecting them?
I don't think it should affect them in any which way. Whatever his preference was, that was his preference. I mean, me personally, I have nothing against the organization. I have friends that are gay. I have friends that are lesbians. We both do. And some people come out, some people don't. I've spoke to a few people that do know him, and they told me that he wasn't gay. He was bisexual. He goes both ways. So me personally, I have nothing against gays. If that was his preference, that was his preference. It shouldn't affect them in any which way possible. There's not anyone in New York or Guyana that doesn't have a friend that's gay or lesbian. It's a new generation, plain and simple. That's what's going around, that's what it is. It's going to happen, it's going to continue to happen, and might even get worse than what it is right now. We have to accept it. New terms, new generation, new age.
In New York City and here in the United States, justice is colorblind, That's why I said before the show, Lady Justice wears the blindfolds. So whether you're gay or lesbian or you're black or you're white or whatever you are, all right, law enforcement doesn't look at it that way. They're looking at the underlying circumstances and the crime, and they move forward from there. And I think the people that are involved with the local communities here in New York City, especially the LGBT community, they're pretty engaged in Lower Manhattan. When I worked there, they're engaged. They know what's going on. All right, they're not going to change anything because of this. This is sounds like a very particular set of circumstances that are involved here in Guyana. I think it'll have probably little or no play at all here in the United States whatsoever.
Let me just add this, that the LGBT community and the Guyanese community, I think they do some very good work in educating the public, because as you know, Guyana and the Caribbean is very anti-gay.
Yes.
All right, very anti-gay.
I believe it's still illegal.
It still is.
To be
But I think they're doing great work in the community. We should respect them. They're human beings first. We should not hate them because of their sexual preference at all. And they should not be targeted by anyone as a result of this situation. Because then I think the community needs to come together and defend them.
Now, we're not saying what Bisram's sexual preference is. Everything here is speculation, whether he's gay, straight, bisexual, whatever it is.
Shouldn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The point is a man has lost his life here. And I do want to
serious.
say
That's
that
very serious.
we did reach out to the LGBT community to come on this panel. We also reached out to the Marcus Brian Bisram Foundation to also have a member to come on this panel as well. And they are not here today, but we did reach out.
Maybe the next program.
Perhaps. I hope so. You know, I would love to hear, you know, from his side, you know, someone from his side, his organization. I mean, till date, there has been no statement from a foundation. I mean, forget about from a person, but he's the president of an organization. Now, normally organizations would come forward and make a statement, maybe not necessarily about the alleged murder, but if you're a humanitarian organization, should you not send out a message of sympathy or condolences to this family? Chuck, what do you feel about that?
I think they should, but I think the question is, he may be scared also of other things that may come out that implicate him not only for murder, but from some other illegal stuff.
What are we talking about when you say?
And when we talk about that, we're talking, how did he inherit all this money? Is it as he claimed? You see, because some people on the streets are already talking about, well, maybe they need to, well, I don't know how the person was buried or whatever. Maybe they need to exhume the body and check. And to see, since he was taking care of this person, a whole host of things they're talking. You know our community, how they are.
Yeah.
And so
The story always changes by the time it reaches the third person.
No, but I'm just saying those are things that are happening. And so that could be a reason maybe he's not coming out, because there can be tons of things coming out. We don't know. Again, it's pure speculation, but it's out there.
Right.
With
So
some people.
let's talk about that a little bit there. And I know I missed you guys on that answer there, but it's said, allegedly, that Bisram was a home health aide care. He was a caretaker for an elder man who was sick, and this elderly man passed away and left his inheritance to Bisram. So supposedly that is how he had his money. Did you guys hear anything about how such a young man, only 27 years old, came into this amount of wealth?
I spoke to a good source actually right before I came here.
Okay.
And I was told that the person that he was taking care of had no children. I don't know how true it is. This is what I was told. Had no children, had no relatives, so he had no one to leave his assets to. So in his will, he stated everything go to him. So after he passed away, that's how he inherited all his fortune, plus all the real estate that he has, which is a couple good houses all over the place. So how true that is, I don't know, but that's what I was told. So if the guy really didn't have anybody to leave it to and I was taking care of you, then why not?
The question also remains, did he pay inheritance taxes on millions of dollars? We don't know. Because what I'm hearing is it was millions of dollars, and which is over $250,000, where you don't have to pay inheritance taxes if your family leaves something for you. But maybe all those things are coming into play, that things can pile up. We don't know. Again, it's all speculation. But after hearing things, you have to look at everything. Maybe that's why things are moving a little slow, because of the investigation into all these things.
Well, there could be a forensic accountant
That's what I'm saying.
hired by the people in Guyana, and they could be running down the money and maybe the possible relationships here in the United States. But it's a lot of speculation. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes and what law enforcement may or may not be doing. There's a lot of different things that can be going on there. So it's difficult to say.
Okay, so this is a heavy loaded question here. Do you think authorities should investigate whether he was involved in the death of his partner?
I think they need to focus on what the case is first before going to dig up the guy's whole past, and there's nothing there. Focus on what's taking place. Focus on what's in front of you. Was he responsible for the murder in Guyana or not? for the person he was taking care of, deal with that after. There's a family that wants justice for their son being killed.
Chuck.
They need to investigate it at the same time. Who knows if there's another family there who wants justice for that person? We never know. When you're investigating crime, and you would know this, officer, you have to investigate everything. Okay? Where did he get this money from that he's giving to any and everybody? Right. All right? There are questions there, and it could be answered by the authorities over here. All right? And then it will become twofold. They will be after him over here if they find anything, and they'll be after him in Guyana for the other thing. But you have to do everything. Listen, you're saying that it's in the past, but it's relevant. It'll always be relevant because of what is happening now. It might have been irrelevant if nothing ever happened with this. But now there are lots of questions, and those questions must be answered.
Joseph.
What was the question again? I want to go back to the frame.
Sure. Do you think authorities should investigate whether he was involved in the death of his partner?
Yeah, that's what this whole roundtable's about. Of course, they should investigate, but not just him. They have a person who has been murdered. All right, and that case is open, and that case needs to proceed. Not necessarily based on this other individual. They need to take the case wherever it leads them. It may lead them to him. It may lead to 6 of his colleagues, or to his employees, or it may take them in any number of different areas. And if eventually the evidence points to him, then sure, they're going to have to take him down. And he's going to be arrested, and he may do a whole lot of time in jail. But it's not based on him. It's based on the evidence and where the death of this individual and everything, grows from that point forward. I know we have a high-profile person here, and there may be some interest in seeing him being investigated, but you know what? That's meaningless unless the evidence is pointing them in that direction, or if he's got, he's a material witness to what's going on, and he's refusing to cooperate or something like that. The police will get into that, or so will the investigators, and I've got a lot of faith that certainly in a high-profile, felony case like murder, that everything will be, the resources will be poured into that to make sure that there actually is, as you say, Chuck, justice.
Yeah.
Because we all want justice for this poor individual who has died, all right, and justice for their family as well. In that case, I think we're all united on that point.
Let me just add this. I think justice is more important than friendship.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Justice is more important than friendship. Chuck, I know you're involved with several organizations in the community. How are the organizations reacting to this?
Well, they're reacting based on some of the things we spoke about here. People are raising questions, how he got the money in the first place, why is he giving this money out to people, splurging here, splurging there.
Do you feel it's tearing up the community?
Again, we have a strange community. Very strange. He's giving money to mandirs and temples and so on and so forth. And somehow that means a lot to those members of those organizations. And it doesn't matter if all the evidence drops in front of them and said he's guilty. He's not guilty according to them, just because he gave them some crumbs in the form of some dollars. You see, I don't understand that. It's beyond me. Because they're looking at that, but they're not looking at that victim. They should be looking at the victim, okay? And not thinking because this person give them money, he's holier than thou, as they would say. We all have those potential in us to commit crime. Some do it, some don't. We're human beings, all right? Some of us don't. Some of us live simple and content lives. Others want to be out there. They want to be the focus of attention any place they go. He seems to be one of those type of people. The need to be somebody. And they'll do anything to be somebody in the public's eye. And those are the type of things. And I don't think that the community should take this on, really. He just happens to be, and if found guilty, just another criminal.
Faiyaz, do you think it's breaking up our community or pulling our community to take a side?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so for the simple fact the articles are everywhere. It's all over social media. You have people that's commenting on it saying, "Oh, throw him in jail because of his preference," or
This is wrong.
yeah. And then you have people that's commenting on it, saying, giving their honest opinion of what they think should be done. Oh, put him in jail, give him a chance. He's guilty. He's not guilty. It's all over. They are being pulled. The right and left, but I don't think it's tearing up the community at all. I think the community should get more involved in what's going on, or know the facts when the facts are there before they make a judgment. But that's our community. A guy robs a store, it's 5 o'clock. By the time he reaches the fourth person, he robbed the store at 5 o'clock and rode away on a horse. It always gets changed by the time it reaches the fifth person, but just not our community, like you said, every community.
Right. And I know you're familiar with the Indo-Caribbean community as well. How do you think this is affecting our community?
Well, it's hard for me to assess that, quite frankly. I know there are some who are plugged in who this is probably affecting more than those that are just going on with the daily struggle of human life, right? Those that are, pretty much engaged in their own struggle every single day of the week, they haven't got time for this nonsense, quite frankly. They're too busy taking care of the kids, going to work, keeping the house together and everything else. For those people that are kind of really plugged into their own community, they're talking about it. They're talking about it, and they're just wondering a lot of the questions that have been brought up here at the table. Is this 27-year-old young man, all right, who has inherited a fortune, did he get it legitimately? Did that happen that way? And was there a party that got out of hand? And, the people who were at that party are now all subjects of that whole investigative scene. And whether or not they're saying something, if they're holding back something, they could be in a lot of trouble. So, to that extent, maybe some of these people are chatting it up. And, I hate to say it, but, money does influence a lot. And Chuck mentioned it, the people who may be looking at this objectively are one side. The people who have been the benefactors of his newfound wealth may be stoking the flames on the other side and saying, "Oh, what are you kidding? No, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread." And for very good reason, because they're expecting him to come back again and again and again and again.
So there are a few terms being thrown out there when we think of Marcus Brian Bisram. There are terms such as donation money or buyout money or blood money. Chuck.
Rich people, that's a trend. They buy their way in society to make people feel they can do no wrong. But in the end, it all comes out. They do that. Listen, if you go to crime organizations, they go to church every Sunday. And when they come out, they put a hit on somebody. Are we going to hijack this truck that's coming through from New Jersey? All right? So they're buying their influence. So if they go to church, it means they must be good. They go to the mandir, the synagogue, the whatever. They must be good. They can't do wrong because they're going to church. So many of them hide behind religious bodies. It's a good thing to do. They hide behind religious bodies, just like some people donate to children organizations because you must be good because you donate to a children organization. Sometimes many people do it the right way. Some people do it for some other reason. My organization would never accept money from anyone with a past that's very clouded. Never. Or even organizations, we would not accept money from a Coca-Cola company, for example, because of their reputation. Our organization, we make sure we don't buy Coke products. I'm saying that to say we have that reputation because we are socially conscious and we know where to spend our dollar. Not because you give us some money, all right, that makes you good. You're doing it for some other reasons. And a lot of times that happens. And if we go back, let me just say this. See, if we read historically in United States history, organizations that were charitable, all of them did not do it because they love people. They do it for other reasons. Philanthropic families did it for other reasons. For example, in the South, where some of the known black colleges, the people who started that was not because they loved those people. They had an ulterior motive behind founding those colleges. And it was not to educate the newly freed black slaves the way the other part of the population was educated. They wanted to give them a special kind of education that was here, but not up here. So just to give you an example of some people do things for different reasons.
Well, speaking of that, do you gentlemen think if Bisram is found guilty, do you think that these organizations should return the money?
Definitely.
Why?
It's blood money.
I think they should give the money to the family of the victim.
I'll agree on that. Give the money to the family of the victim. Should they give back the money? Yes. Will they give back the money?
No.
No.
Do you think that this Bisram case, with all of these substantial monetary donations, do you think that there's a lesson to our people here? Chuck.
Yes. Beware of those businessmen who makes donation to the temples, the mandirs, and then the next thing you know, we read about them in the newspaper being arrested. They should be a little more cautious on how they get their funds and from who they get their funds from. I think it's very, very important because you don't buy your reputation in the community. That is something you earn based on your integrity.
I mean, a lot of people give donations, but the way he was going about the donations was he wanted to, tell me if I'm wrong, he wanted it to be known that he gave the donations, correct?
That is correct from what I know.
Okay, people that give donations genuinely just give the donations. Don't need to be, oh, Fahir gave that donation. No, you write your check, you give the donation, and you go on your way. But he wanted to be known that he gave the donations. So I would say on that point, I think he was just buying friendship, buying loyalty.
So why do you guys think that our community hasn't stood up yet regarding this and voiced their opinion or their sympathies to the family of a person? Narinedatt died by the hands of allegedly someone that we know, that we've received donations from, our community, that is.
Because to them it's just another murder. It's just another murder to them until it was someone in their family that it happened to. Then they would want the same support that this family needs and deserves.
Just why do you think community leaders in our community that have received funding from Bisram have not spoken up?
I think a lot of this deals with personal integrity. All right, if you have your own personal integrity, we've talked about a wide level of corruption issues and all sorts of things going wrong, right? So I always like to reach up and say what unites us all right, rather than what divides us. And, when I look at the Guyanese community, they have strong values. They really do, on the family level. Those that have had the opportunity for education have excelled. And I think we have to appeal to the best of what's in us and higher ideals, and the matter of personal integrity and self-discipline and those things. And we need to inspire and sometimes direct and sometimes further educate, the young people that are coming up, because we may have lost a generation or two, right? That maybe have not been focused on what personal integrity means. It's one of the things I was talking to Chuck before about, we've lost this whole civics lesson. Civics are very, very important. Having people involved in the community, not just the Guyanese community, but how they integrate into the overall community here in New York City, and then the different established boroughs and towns within those boroughs and all this. All of this is very, very important. It's something that I've been working, tirelessly on for quite some time with a wide-ranging number of immigrant communities, to bring them in to the public government, the public space, so that they are visible and that they have a strong voice. That starts with personal integrity. You have to have personal integrity. You have to be honest with yourself, who you are, and what you're all about. And then you can go out and you can start talking to other people and espousing, hey, listen, this one should be thinking that way, all these different things. Then you can start going about and having those things to say. But I hold a lot of sway. And to some of the young people that may be watching this today, I'm going to tell you, if you're from the Guyanese community, it is your personal integrity that matters. That's where it starts. Be true to yourselves, get the best possible education you can get, and then share that information with your families, all right, and your friends and everyone else. That's where it starts.
Thank you so much. So we know that Bisram has been donating millions of dollars. What are your thoughts on the possibility of anti-money laundering?
Well, it depends. Does he have a bank account in Guyana? Does he have separate bank accounts? I don't know if he's laundering money. If he has it, he has it. And he gives it away. That's fine. I'm not certain, and usually it's drug people who launder money. There's been no accusation of that, so I'm not coming from that angle, or some other illegal business if you're in that makes you want to launder money. Again, I'm not an expert on that, but I would believe that if he inherited millions, he wouldn't need to launder money.
Do you think it might be questionable, like the amount of money that he's donating to Guyana? How is he getting this money over to Guyana?
Well, that's something that the federal authorities would look at. That would raise a red flag, something called a SARS report that would get filed with the Department of the Treasury, and they'd be up on that pretty quick. Anything over, I think, $9,999 needs to be reported leaving the country. So, if he's doing what I'm hearing, into the millions of dollars, and it's leaving the United States into Guyana via wire, money bag, whatever it is, all right, and in that size and sum. There are reports that are required for that, and permissions and authorities that have to be taken out. And, if you have that much money, then you may have a legal staff that can take care of that for you. Right? And if he's not,
Just to clarify something,
look out.
the millions in Guyana is just equivalent to a few thousands here.
Just to clarify, $4 million is 20,000 US.
Right.
So that's over 9,999. 20,000.
20,000 is $100.
4 million Guyana dollars is 20,000 US dollars.
US, okay.
Right?
Yeah, and don't play with the amounts of money makes no difference. All right, because in Guyana, a lot of what we consider $10,000 or $20,000, it's still a lot of money, folks.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of money, even if you're turning that into Guyanese, dollars. It's going to be a tremendous amount of money for them.
So here we have a video of Faiyaz Narinedatt's mother crying out that she lost her son. She says she still talks to her son as if he's there.
This is not something easy. It's something very hard. And to be honest with you, me can't stay in the house. When me go in the house, me go in the room. If anybody going behind me, they're going to say me mad. And come and talk to my son inside the room. Think the old lady inside the not come out, he not go nowhere. Whole day only weekend, my son will come out one house. And it's very hard what happened there. Me can't bear it. Too much for me. Me can't sleep on one bed. Me not wanna help for me. Come and lay down can have me cold night. This too much. Young girl like this, widow. Me got to be on me life without one child with me. Me childless now. This is something easy that me got to bear. And me got something to say. He had police, 51 police, killing police, and people from the state policing group and that if my son did something wrong, everybody had a right to carry my son and lock him up. Then I had to do the way they do it. I'm in throw him a road. That's something very hard, and nobody would like that for their only child or anybody would like that for them children. I want justice for my son. Me don't want to see them people that's out back on the street.
After seeing this video, what justice do you think should be in place for Faiyaz? Chuck.
Well, first of all, those who are guilty should be brought to justice. That's on the justice, the legal part, but also, and I don't know, I think they're a poor family.
Yeah.
And somehow we should reach out, the government even should try to reach out to help them, or other people in the society in Guyana, you know, because it's going to be very difficult not having the father who was the breadwinner of the family, not having him. And we have to think about that child.
There are two children.
Two children, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Those two children. Think about if it was our children.
And the wife was actually in New Jersey, United States of America. She gave birth to their baby daughter here in the USA. So Faiyaz never saw his baby girl, who was 5 months, because he was in Guyana and she was in America. So he saw his son, but never the 5-month-old baby. Very touching, Fahir. How do you feel when you saw that video of his mom crying?
I mean, it's a touching video. She's hurt. She lost her son. Was her only son?
Only son.
She lost her only son. He was married. He had kids. He had a wife. He was the breadwinner. What does the family do now? 80% of families in Guyana are poor. We know that. Should a fund start to help them out? You said earlier, yes. Now, justice for the family should be served, despite whoever committed the murder, whoever beat him up, whoever it was. If it was security, if it was Marcus, if it was the waiter, whoever it was, justice should be served for the death of his family. And they should get some compensation, despite wherever it's coming from. If it's coming from the community, if it's coming from New York, if it's coming from Guyana, if it's coming from a GoFundMe, wherever it's coming from, we should unite together and donate some money for the family. If each person on Facebook or Instagram gives $5, it goes a long way. I don't see why it could be done.
Right. Is there a website people can go to?
I will get that for you. There is a GoFundMe that's being orchestrated by one of the family members. So far, we have a few businesses, I can't relinquish the names, that have donated substantial amounts of money towards the family.
So they are being taken care of financially.
We're in the process of starting it. The family is in the process of starting it.
Very good.
But we've already received pledges for them. And I will definitely release that information on the show, the next show. So speaking of that, we're wrapping up. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on to the Let's Talk, sharing your light on this story. I believe your statements and your opinions have been much appreciated, and I'm sure everyone watching this week's episode of Let's Talk can't wait for you guys to come back on. There'll definitely be a part 2 to this Bisram versus Narinedatt case as we receive more information. I mean, the latest is with Interpol, but we'll talk about that on part 2. Thank you so much for coming on. You guys were fantastic.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you for having us.